What up, people? It's been a while since I posted, but I was scrolling just now and I came across a video that started tugging at me, and I just felt the need to speak on it. Pretty much the biggest difference when it comes down to a man and a woman. You know, um, certain men roles, certain roles that females take, and then like the misconception as to what somebody's supposed to do over other. And the topic of the video that I saw was about somebody saying how they would prefer having their independence, and how their independence is the most important thing in a relationship. And I'm listening to this and it got me thinking, right? What does it mean to be independent? Because the female in that video said that she's independent. She can take care of herself. She can do everything on her own. She can, she don't need nobody. She don't need a man. She don't need a man. She wants a man. And I found myself thinking, like, I don't ever hear men talking like that. I only ever hear women talking like that. And listen, I can be wrong, but just on my own experience, I've never heard a man talking about, I don't need a woman, I just want one. In that type of scenario, and that state of mind. And it got me thinking, like, what does it mean to really be independent? Because when you get in a relationship, you lose all independence. Because once you get in a relationship, you choose to share everything with the other person. So there is no independence. So how can you be in a relationship and still try to maintain your independence? That's not possible. Because if you go into a relationship and you try to commit to that relationship and you try to build something from that relationship, you lose all your independence. It becomes a team. It's not you or me, it's we, right? So that whole notion of, listen, I want to be able to maintain my independence while I'm in a relationship and all this other stuff, that's a false mindset. That's fake reality, because unless you are not seriously committed to the relationship, then there's no way you can maintain independence. It's not possible, right? And then it gets you thinking, right? Like, I understand where certain people, and I understand where people might lack the knowledge about that. And I think I understand where people are coming from. If you are a mature person, a mature in the head, a mature mentally, nobody ever wants to be taken care of. Nobody wants to sit there and be treated like they're a child or anything like that. Everybody wants to be able to take care of themselves. That's the given, no matter what. But being able to take care of yourself doesn't mean that you're dependent or independent in anything. Because you can sit there and say, I'm independent in the sense that I want to be able to take care of myself. I don't need nobody to buy me anything. I don't need nobody to be able to take care of me, nothing like that. But you can't sit there and say that if you're a mature person, that you've never once had the thought that, you know what, I wish I had somebody to love me. I love myself. I'm happy with myself. I just wish I had somebody to love me back. Unless you're an immature person who doesn't care about anything like that, then that's the only way that you can say or feel or think that it's okay to maintain independence in a relationship. That's the only way. Because a lot of people say, and again, a lot of females, it's not, I don't hear a lot of men saying this. A lot of females are always saying this. I don't need a man to take care of me. You know, I don't need a man. I just want a man. You know, all this other stuff. You know, I don't want to have to be dependent on nobody. This, and that. You know, we should be able to build each other up and all this other stuff. Like, yeah, that's cool, but I feel like what a lot of females get into the habit of thinking is just because you independent doesn't, it means that it's wrong to depend on somebody else. That's not the case, right? Because a lot of people, a lot of women misconstrue being dependent and then being, what's that word, codependent, or whatever it is, where it says like, oh, you can't live without somebody else. Like, no, that's not the case. Like, there's a fine line between the two. You can be independent in a relationship in the fact that, listen, I don't need nobody to take care of me. I can take care of myself. You know, I can support my own. You know, I could be able to do my part. I don't need nobody's help to be able to do my part. But at the end of the day, is it such a bad thing to depend on somebody else to love you? The problem is that if that is the case, then you lose yourself trying to get somebody else to love you. That's the one thing that you shouldn't do. That's the one thing that doesn't need to happen. That's where that codependency comes into place. But other than that, it's not a bad thing to want and try to have somebody love you in return, to depend on somebody to love you, to be there for you mentally and emotionally. You could be independent financially, but there's nothing wrong with having somebody there to love you and to be there for you and to support you. Like, that's that mental and emotional dependence in a relationship that's required. No matter what anybody thinks, no matter what anybody feels about the situation, if you're in a truly committed relationship with somebody, mental and emotional dependence is required for both. You got to be able to depend on yourself if you're not getting it from the other person, but you got to be able to depend on that other person as well, if the circumstances are right. Otherwise, what's the point of being in a relationship? You're just there for you know, convenience at that point. And it's not fair to nobody. It's not fair to nobody in that relationship. And what I feel personally is a lot of females now are very immature with what they want, what they think, and what they believe. A lot of females follow a lot of trends, and a lot of it is taught growing up and everything like that, especially in broken homes. You know, just like men, you know, men growing up in broken homes and not being taught how to love properly, you know, they grow up not knowing how to give love. You know, doesn't mean that they don't want to love. Doesn't mean that they don't want to love you females. It doesn't mean that they don't want to give you the affection that you deserve or nothing like that. It's just, they just don't know any better. And the same thing for a female. Females growing up thinking that financials is the only thing that matters. I don't know why, but they think that financials is the one thing that's the end all be all. Let me give you something to think about, right? You have a broken home. You have a divorced family. Mom and dad divorced. You have kids. In a situation like that where one parent didn't give the love that they needed to give, and the child didn't receive the love that they needed. If it was a male, if it was a boy, right? If it was a young man, What's the likelihood of them growing up to be? Unemotional, independent, not really giving love, right? They're going to know that they want a family. They're going to know that they want to be able to do all of this stuff. They're going to know that they want to be in a relationship. But that affection is not going to be there. What about for a female grows up in that same situation, a young woman? They're going to grow up thinking that it's not good to depend on anybody. They're going to grow up thinking, listen, I just got to be able to take care of myself. I got to do whatever I need to do. And then they're going to grow up thinking, listen, I don't need a man. I don't need nothing. I don't want to have to depend on nobody, this, and that, all that other stuff. And it all falls and it all goes down. Like it goes down into a relationship. So it's a lot of immaturity that goes on in the world. And it all stems from what people see, what people hear, and what they go through. And a lot of times people are so caught up not really trying to correct that type of immaturity because, I don't, it's not my business, you live your life how you want to live, all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like all anybody wants in this world is to be loved and to be happy. And yeah, it's true. You got to be able to love yourself before you can give love to anybody else. That's true. But the one thing that you really need to understand, the one thing that everybody needs to understand is that dependence isn't a bad thing. When you start trying to draw the line between, listen, I'm going to be independent in a relationship in all areas because I don't want to have to be tied down to a man, because I don't want to have to be tied down to a woman, because I don't want to have to sit there and have to depend on them for nothing. Like, that's where you fall short, right? That's where you fall short. I think as parents, no matter what the situation is, I think as parents, you need to be able to show your kids that it's okay to depend on somebody. That it's okay to be your own person and still depend on somebody. That it's okay to want to be self-sufficient in the sense that you can financially take care of yourself, but still be available to depend on somebody emotionally and mentally. Now, that's not saying one way or the other. That's not saying in any way that you have to sit there and depend on somebody else to make you happy. It's all a matter of being happy and finding somebody who can add or match your happiness. Financials shouldn't be a part of it. If you're going into a relationship with somebody and only looking at what they can do for you financially, you're being very selfish. You're being very immature if that's the only thing you're looking for. Because listen, at the end of the day, somebody who's going through a rough time financially can still be the person that can give you all the love in the world. And hell, you might even be the one that can bring him out of that funk or bring her out of that funk and can get them to where they need to be. It's not about finding somebody that can match you, all the time. It's about finding somebody who can give you what it is that you're missing. And being able to build each other up to where you need to be. But everybody has to be conscious enough to acknowledge those faults in ourselves first. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure, But I think as parents, as parents, we need to be able to teach our kids that it's okay to depend on somebody. You could be independent all you want. You can want to take care of yourself all you want. That's fine. But it's okay to depend on somebody. It's okay to want to be loved. It's okay to want to be noticed. It's okay to want to be appreciated. As long as that's not something that you're looking for, it's okay to want it, but not to go looking for. Because at the end of the day, it's going to find you one way or the other. But it's okay to want it. I think that's something that we need to teach our kids, like, first and foremost. Because too many times kids go through life feeling like they're unwanted. Too many times kids go around and because they didn't get it, they grow cold. I know. I went through it growing up, and it took me a long time to be able to be okay with myself. It took me a long time to realize, where my traumas lied. It took me a long time to realize what I was dealing with, because it's something that I try to run away from all the time. But at the end of the day, man, listen, it's okay. You gotta grow up. You gotta mature. You gotta build yourself up to the point where even though you want it, it's okay to not have it. Humble yourself down a little bit, Be humble. It's okay to want it, but not have it. And it's okay to look for it, even if you don't get it. And be okay if you don't get it. You know what I mean? Like, know your worth, know your value, know what you bring to the table. Know what you're willing to accept. And just be okay with yourself. I personally feel that when it comes down to mental health and trying to be okay and trying to work through and trying to get through things, I think a lot of people get so caught up in trying to find themselves, but then they enjoy being alone in the process. I think that's a big problem when it comes down to trying to find, self-reflecting, trying to find yourself, trying to find out who you are and everything like that. I think it's an important thing to self-reflect, and I think it's an important thing to build yourself up. I think that is a very important thing, and I think that's something that everybody should always take time to do, no matter what. I think that is something that's very important to growing and maturing. But I also feel like people really get so caught up in that process that they get so used to being alone that's where that independence comes from, where, listen, I could do good on my own. I learned that I need to do this by myself. So you know what? I don't need nobody else to get me through this. I don't need nobody else to get me to where I need to be. I need to do this on my own. And all this other stuff. Like, yeah, you need to, but you don't have to isolate yourself from everything else while you're trying to get there. And I think that's where a lot of people go. They try to go through the process and then they isolate themselves from everything else, because that's what the culture, that's what the world culture tells us we got to do. We got to be able to do good on our own. What's that word? I could do bad all by myself, and on the flip side, I could do good all by myself. It's like everything in life, everything in culture, everything in this world, all it ever tells you to do is that, you need to be alone. You need to do it by yourself. You're good on your own, all this other stuff. Like, you don't need nobody. You can do this and third. Like, if you go to therapy and all that other stuff, all they're going to do is say, listen, you need to take time on your own, this and that. You need to do this on your own, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah. But what does that really do for you besides set you up for failure, right? You know, setting you up for failure. In a relationship, if you got two people who are going through trouble and they're trying to go through therapy separately to try and figure out how to better themselves, then isn't the goal of it to try, if you want to work on the relationship, if that's the goal, if that's something that you want, then isn't the goal to try to figure out yourself, figure out yourself independently, so that way you can figure out what to add to the relationship, instead of it being, listen, you need to be on your own, you need to learn how to be by yourself, you don't need to be in a relationship right now. It's like, then what's the point, right? Then at that point, what's the point? What's the goal? You're either going to learn that you don't need the relationship, or you're going to learn that you're nothing to the relationship. It's like, that's defeats the whole purpose. You know what I mean? It defeats everything. So being okay with yourself is important to mental health and to maturing as a person. But then again, isolating yourself defeats all of that progress. Because like I said, everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be noticed. Everybody wants to be appreciated in some way. You gotta be able to look past all the BS. You gotta be able to look past what the world tells you, man. You gotta be able to look past what culture tells you. You know, you gotta be able to look past what history tells you and everything like that, man. You gotta look at what's in the heart. You gotta look at what's in the heart. You know, a lot of people say that you got to follow your heart sometimes, and let's be honest, the heart leads you somewhere and places that it's only gonna screw you over. Like, and that's the truth. But you got to be able to follow what's in your heart with the right capacity, with the right mental capacity. Because if you follow your heart and not understand how to get there, then all you're going to do is set yourself up to be hurt again or to be disappointed. But if you can follow your heart and know what needs to be done to get there, then you have a goal and you know how to get there and you know what steps need to be taken to get there. Otherwise, you fall into that immaturity. I don't want to lose my independence in a relationship. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. It's like, come on, bro. Life ain't always all about, making it big and all that other stuff, man. Listen, it's about being loved. It's about having somebody to share life with. It's about having someone to share experiences with. It's about loving and being loved in return. Like, that doesn't mean you have to lose out on who you are as a person. It's about sharing who you are as a person with somebody else. That's what life is all about. Otherwise, you live a lonely, isolated life. Whether you think you're happy or not, whether you think you're okay or not, all you're doing is living a lonely and isolated life, and it doesn't do nothing for you. Because you miss out on everything. If love comes to you, you're going to miss out on it because you don't know what it is. You don't know what it looks like. And you're really not going to care what you're missing out on. So I leave everybody with this. Follow your heart, but know what you're doing. Parents, teach your kids that it's okay to depend on others the right way. Everybody else, grow up. You're not as mature as you think you are. You're not as independent as you think you are. You're broken. Doesn't mean you have to stay broken. Anything that's broken doesn't mean it has to stay broken. And anything that's broken doesn't mean that it has to be rebuilt into the same thing. It could be remade into something better. Remember that. I truly, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, believe that anybody can make a difference. And I truly, from the bottom of my heart, believe that everybody needs somebody. Whether you believe it or not, I truly believe that everybody needs somebody. But it's up to us to figure out who they are, what they are, and what they can be for us. Just don't isolate yourself. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Be better, people. Trust me. Be better.